I'm here to tell you we got screwed, but there's a silver lining. You're locked on.
You are Locked On Yukon, your daily podcast on the Yukon Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Yukon your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate your support. Press that like button, press that subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you're on listening to audio. Swipe that follow, whatever it is on your phone. Could be a Apple, Android. Follow me everywhere. I don't want you to ever miss a moment of Locked On Yukon. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the Yukon men's and women's basketball programs, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, it's official. Yep, it's official. UConn is an 8 seed for all of the, maybe we'll get a 6, maybe we'll get a 7. When Evan Miyakawa came on first and said they were going to right around the 8 seed, maybe up to a 10, I laughed, and he was right. And also when I had Rocco Miller in, he said they were likely going to stay as an 8, and they did. So they'll open the NCAA tournament in Raleigh. Good for me because I'll be able to go to the game on Friday night against Oklahoma. Wait, Oklahoma, an SEC team? Yeah, a team that went 6-12 in conference play. Now, I'm going to be careful with how much I make fun of that because I don't want it to bite me in the ass if they beat us on Friday. But that in itself, the SEC getting 14 teams with, I shouldn't say a majority. I'll have to look at the number. But a good amount of those teams winning 8 games, 9 games, 6 games, including Texas, to make an at-large. It's just the NCAA, the selection committee really screwed the pooch this year. And I want to do an entire show just on these kind of discrepancies and like the things that they value versus what they actually told us or what they're actually doing. This matchup with Oklahoma looks like, we're going to talk about that. What are the Huskies' path to a second round showdown with freaking Florida? Probably the most talented, the biggest, the fastest team in the country. And most importantly, did UConn get snubbed? Spoiler alert, they did. Did this committee get it right? In short, probably not. The NCAA tournament selection committee once again delivered some head-scratching decisions and a breakdown like this. 5 seeds, including teams ranked lower than 8 seeds. 5 seeds. Clemson, 20 was this. These are evanmiyakawa.com overall resume, overall where these teams rank, right? This isn't AP poll. This isn't Ken Palm. This isn't net. 5 seeds. Clemson under Evan, 22. Michigan, 31. Oregon, 37. Memphis, 40. Here are the 8 seeds, according to Evan Mia. And I take Evan Miyakawa's analytics at gospel compared to the committee coming together, all these, talking heads of quote unquote basketball minds who clearly only watch high major basketball and don't get into the nuances of what these metrics actually mean. Here are the 8 seeds from Evan. Gonzaga was 9th in his bracket. In his metrics. Louisville 18th, UConn 21st, Mississippi State 35. So all 4 of his 8 seeds, all 4 of the 8 seeds were higher in his bracket and in his rationale than what the committee by 3 lines. Not, listen, 1 line here, 1 line there. If you feel like you should have been a 7 and you got an 8, or you feel like you should have been a 10 and you got an 11. That's different. But if it's like a 2 or 3 line discrepancy, that's that Tom Izzo metrics right there. Gonzaga, a top 10 team under his metrics, also lands as an 8 seed, meaning a 1 seed could be staring down a round of 32 matchup with one of Evan's top 10 teams. And that 1 seed, I think, is, if we look at that bracket really fast, I know Gonzaga isn't 1 seed, and I can't think for the life of me who they play. I don't think it's Duke, but I could be wrong. But it is... It's Houston. That's a tough draw for Houston because Houston, they got a decent amount of scoring this year, but if you don't shoot the ball well and Gonzaga does, that defense, that vaunted physicality isn't going to help you. The Sooners are 20-13 in the SEC, or 20-13 overall, 6-12 in the SEC. They're well balanced on the offensive side. They're 21st in adjusted efficiency, according to Ken Palm, but their defense is about 70th, 73rd-ish. They're not elite. We're going to go through these strengths and weaknesses with Oklahoma. Oklahoma thrives on the offensive end, ranking one of the top 25 in adjusted efficiency. They score at a high rate and have multiple offensive threats who can create their own shots. Their ball movement is solid, 52% assisted baskets. That's a good thing for them. They space the floor well to get quality looks. This is a team that plays smart, takes efficient shots, and doesn't force bad possessions. They have strong three-point shooting. Bad news for UConn. 37% as a team, 35th nationally. The Sooners have multiple legitimate perimeter threats, led by Duke Miles at 44%, Bryson Goodwin at 43.4%, Dayton Forsythe at 46.7%. While Oklahoma gets into a rhythm from deep, they can be capable of stretching defenses, making teams pay for sagging off. This is an area where UConn must be careful with a sub 300 ranking in perimeter defense. It's been an issue all year at times. I know sometimes it looks like we're snake bitten, but there's been times where legitimately just bad defense. Oklahoma has shooters to exploit that. They are an elite free throw shooting team, and they get to the line quite a bit. They're a 80% free throw shooting team as a team. That's 9th nationally, so a top 10 nationally ranked team. UConn gets into foul trouble. Oklahoma has the ability to capitalize and hurt UConn there. Their weaknesses, their interior defense is a huge problem that UConn can exploit. They give up 55% of opponent 2-point field goal percentage. That's 322nd nationally. One of Oklahoma's biggest weaknesses is their inability to protect the rim and contest shots inside. I think their tallest guy who has any consequence of how they play is 6'9". That means a field day for Sampson and likely also for Terrace Reed. Opponents are shooting a staggering 55% on 2-point attempts. It's one of the reasons why they've lost so many games this season, 13 and 12 of them in conference. Terrace Reed Jr., Samson Johnson, Alex can absolutely dominate down low and attack. Liam also can get some love as he likes to attack the basket, hopefully get to the rim. They have a clear size advantage and physical advantage. Not something you thought you would hear going into a first-round matchup with UConn being considered a finesse team, but they are the more physical team 100%. This is Oklahoma. They are a terrible defensive rebounding team. They give up 31.7% defensive rebounding. That's 277th nationally. Not only does Oklahoma struggle to defend the interior, they also fail to control the defensive glass. Against a UConn team that thrives on the offensive boards, especially lately, this could be a massive advantage. Look for Terrace Reed Jr. to dominate and give them extra possessions. Alex Caravan is an elite positional rebounder. Would love to see some putbacks there. Samson Johnson's length and athleticism will make him a mismatch around the rim. If we can get Marquette Samson Johnson, this team could get ugly early. Turnover issues for Oklahoma have been a disaster all year, 186 nationally. Kind of share that with them a little bit. They turn the ball over at a 17.3% rate of possessions, ranking them outside the top 50. If UConn turns up defensive intensity and forces steals, any type of disruptions, Oklahoma's offensive flow can be disrupted. And I think UConn can really handle the Oklahoma ball handlers. It's not a team that beats you up. This is a team that's going to capitalize on your mistakes and try to get offense in flow. Sound familiar? Very similar style in that respect. Porter Moser runs a very efficient offense. So UConn must dominate the paint. Got to get some key touches to Terrace and Sampson, either in middle ball screen or dump downs, putbacks, etc. Not going to ignore the 3-point percentage, but I would love to get some of those curl actions where Alex is making those moves solo, where you kind of take what's given to you. And if you can get all the way to the rim, do it, because there's nobody there to block it. This isn't a pushover matchup, but considering the seeding discrepancies, the committee did UConn no favors. Oklahoma's a talented team. I don't even think Oklahoma should be in this tournament, but here we are. Let's wipe the floor with them. Let's not worry about if they should be here, if they're the 9, they should be maybe an 11 or not in the tournament at all. They're in front of us. They're in Raleigh. I want UConn to be efficient, aggressive, and take care of business, because there are bigger fish to fry. We're going to talk about a little bit about the tournament draw and what that looks like for UConn if they should get past the Oklahoma team that they should beat on Friday night. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up after this. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. You can fuel your body with the hustle without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week. You can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether that's a Calorie-Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Convenience meals meets nutrition, variety and taste. The Korean beef bowl, creamy Parmesan chicken are some of my favorites. They taste like homemade, but take absolutely no effort. Factor also offers smoothies, breakfast, and snacks, so you can always have something nutritious and ready to go. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast. Use code Factor Podcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Factor Podcast at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Get the supplies you need from the site made from the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to other products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest products info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with your order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already talking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code S-H-5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, you're back on Locked On Yukon. UConn might be an 8 seed in the West, but no number 1 seed in the country wants to see them in round of 32. And in this case, I don't think Florida fears them, but it can't be an easy thought, especially mostly just for the coaching staff. You know, every selection Sunday, a team that has fought for a 9 or an 8 seed will likely see their first round opponent flash on the screen and realize it's a 2-time defending national champions, UConn. Meanwhile, a number 1 seed that dominated its conference all season, like a Florida, or just came from a really powerful conference in the SEC, is staring at the real possibility of facing UConn over the weekend on Sunday. So when the bracket was revealed, you know, that's the first thing that everyone wanted to talk about was, where's UConn going to hit? Are they going to be like an 8? Are they going to be at a 7? So they would have, torment a 2 seed at some point. I think the one thing that we don't talk about enough is, in this year, especially with UConn, winning against Oklahoma is not a foregone conclusion. We've lost to Seton Hall this year. We've lost to Colorado. We've lost to Dayton. We've lost to some really shitty teams. And I don't expect us to just blow away Oklahoma. It would be fantastic. I'll be there. So I hope that that's the case. I really don't want them to go out in a first round loss and have me drive back from Raleigh in a very foul mood. However, I do expect them to beat Oklahoma. I do expect Florida to take care of business as a 1 seed. So I think I read this and it kind of makes me laugh. We've haunted Florida so many times where they've been the favorite that it was almost a perfect time for them to be set up for them to get the clap back. And if there was a Florida team that was set up to beat the living crap out of UConn, this Florida team is that team. So just a quick, if you just go into, whether it's Google, could be ESPN. I'm sorry, I still have this cough. Maybe by 2026, I'll have kicked this cough, but who knows? We shall see. If we just go to the Gators and their box scores and who this team is and how big they are, how physical they are, I'm going to click on Florida right now. They went 30-4. I don't know if they even have a 2-game losing streak all year. So they start off the year, I think they start off the year, 2 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, start 14-0. They lose to Kentucky 106-100. They beat Tennessee by 30 at home, who was then ranked number 1. Then they go to Arkansas, win by 10. They lose by 1 to Missouri. They beat Texas by 24 points at Texas, by the way. Oh, that was home. Sorry. They play out. So this is where it gets this is where I have some good news before I get into this, right? South Carolina, a team that went 12-20 this year, albeit in the SEC, almost beat them. They lost by 1, albeit at home. They go home against Georgia, and they beat Georgia by like 30. Then they go back on the road at Rocky Top and just get smoked by Tennessee and only score 44 points. UConn doesn't have the physicality of Tennessee. But this team lost at Georgia, and I know they went into Auburn and into Alabama and won on the road at both of those schools, 90-81 and then 99-94. When this team gets rolling, they are a train, and trains don't veer. They're not a car. They're not a really fast car that has good suspension and can kind of like maneuver around you. They legitimately are a freight train, and sometimes they're a locomotive, as witnessed by the 104-82 thrashing of Alabama a couple nights ago. And sometimes they're kind of like a choo-choo train, as witnessed by the almost win by South Carolina, losing 70-69 against them, and then Tennessee beating them by 20, Kentucky beating them by 6 earlier in the year. So this team doesn't have a lot of losses. They're 30-4. If you go to their just their roster itself, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare of epic It's a nightmare of epic proportions. They're not even playing their tallest guy. Could you imagine if Olivier Roger from Canada was playing for them? He's 7'9", guys. 7'9", freshman, 305 pounds. They remind me of an old school North Carolina team that just has multiple bigs that just wear you down. They have Micah Hand-Glockton, 7'1", Alex Condon at 6'11", Ruben Chenyele at 6'10". But it's not just that. They have Denzel Aberdeen, who can average 25 points a game if he wants to, as kind of like a backup. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. They have Will Richard. Will Richard. I don't know if it's Richard or Richard. 6'4", 206-pound guard, senior out of Fairburn, Georgia. He's a beast. Then you got Walter Clayton at 6'4", 200 pounds. They just don't have little guys. They have men who are going to Elijah Martin, 6'2", 210 pounds. Like, even their smaller guards, they remind me of the Memphis guards that are like 6'2", but like built like linebackers. And so this guy, whether you like Coach Golden at Florida, and all of the allegations that were against him were falsely accused. So I really don't want to see UConn fans like talking about that over this time frame. Well, your coach stalks girls, all this other stuff. Like, it's just so childish. Like, listen, it's the court of law happens. If you're innocent until proven guilty. If he was proven guilty, he's a creep, but he's not. And he's doing a good job at Florida, and he is building an absolute juggernaut on the court. And Florida has the resources. They have the pedigree, having won a back-to-back national title. That's the other thing I was going to say too. And the NCAA tournament committee won't admit it, but they love storylines. So you want to go from UConn being the UConn being a current two-time national champion back-to-back, going for a three-peat, playing against the last back-to-back national champion, albeit not without Billy Donovan and his Florida Gators. The biggest key for me is I would love for UConn to win this first game so that they can tie a record with Duke for the most NCAA tournament victories in a row at 13, and outside of obviously UCLA in the 64, 68 and tournament era. And not to tie a record with Duke, but to kind of like just to put a little pressure on Florida, because if Florida plays Oklahoma, they're going to murder Oklahoma. I can guarantee you that. If Oklahoma squeaks by us and they beat us, that Florida-Oklahoma game is going to be about a 25-point spread. Trust me. As a matter of fact, didn't they play Oklahoma this year? I'm doing this in the evening, guys, so the yawns are they're rolling in. Yes, by the way, Oklahoma played this Florida team at home a few weeks back and lost 85-63. This is not going to be an easy task, my friends. Probably the worst of the, as far as the talent goes, of any of the ones we could have played, because Auburn is good, but they're like schizophrenic. They've lost 3 or 4. Duke is good, but it's led by freshmen, and whenever that happens, sometimes the nerves can get in the way, and you're playing a team that's especially with 3 or 4 guys that have been there before, just that kind of thing. And then Houston might have been my second worst team to play, but if I almost wanted Duke, because this Florida team is just built like the way probably Danny wants to build his team. He wants to have a couple of bigs down low that are going to be rim protectors and just build around these physical big guards who are quick and can score at every level. But anyway, I don't think Florida is got to be too excited to be playing us anyway. UConn has won 12 straight NCAA tournament games. Like I said, all by double digits. I think that may continue, to be honest with you. If they play well enough, they could easily beat Oklahoma by over 10 points. Defense is going to be an issue. The Big East is an absolute war zone. I think the one thing that UConn has going for them in this NCAA tournament is they run probably the best offensive system, bar none, in the country. And if they can get hot, then they can beat anybody. And that's what we have to hang our hats on, because it's certainly not going to be a defensive effort this year that's going to get this team to a Final Four. Given UConn's elite non-conference track record, it's very possible that as an 8 seed, you can make the Sweet 16 with an upset over Florida and a win over Oklahoma. So make no mistake about it. No one wants to see UConn in March, and especially not a Dan Hurley-led UConn team that's on a roll. All right, when we get back, I'm going to take a quick break, run a couple ads. The tail of the tape, Dan Hurley versus Porter Moser. How this is actually a lot closer than you might imagine. And I think if I was asking Dan this question pre-game, I guarantee you he would agree with me that he respects Porter. And if you know that name, but you're not really sure how you know it, we're going to talk about that coming up after the break.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And then when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can place $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
We're back on Locked On UConn. Last segment of the program here, Monday morning, reacting to where UConn was placed, the job ahead, and also the tail of the tape of these coaches. It's just about UConn versus Oklahoma. It's about two gritty, relentless, self-made coaches who have climbed their way to the top the hard way. Neither Dan Hurley nor Porter Moser was handed a high-profile gig. They both grinded through the ranks, proving themselves at lower levels. Sorry for that coughing fit. Moser's journey, he paid his dues. He was an assistant at places like Creighton, Texas A&M, Milwaukee, Arkansas Little Rock, before taking low major head coaching jobs at University of Arkansas Little Rock, Illinois State. After being fired at Illinois State, he spent 4 years learning under Rick Majerus at St. Louis before rebuilding Loyola Chicago into a Final Four team. Hurley's journey, not unsimilar, built powerhouses at a high school level in St. Benedict's before taking a bottom-tier Wagner team and turning them into a winner. Then at Rhodey, he took a struggling program and made them an NCAA tournament team. Finally, he landed at UConn, resurrecting the program post-Ollie era, and has since won back-to-back national titles. While UConn and Oklahoma are in very different places historically, Hurley and Mosier have a lot in common as coaches. Both are culture builders. You could both make a case that they're carpenters, right? As John Rothstein likes to call Danny. They don't just coach X's and O's. They build programs from the ground up. Both are elite motivators. Their teams play with an edge, a toughness, and a relentless energy. They're positive to an extent. Danny is obviously a lot more on top of the coach, on top of the officiating, as is well documented, and I won't have to get into that. Both preach defense and discipline, albeit this year's team is probably not living up to that billing for Danny Hurley. While their styles may differ, both emphasize hard-nosed, tough, team-oriented basketball. Porter is the underdog specialist. Mosier made his name as the ultimate underdog coach, shocking the world with Sister Jean and company in Loyola Chicago's 2018 Final Four run as an 11 seed. His ability to get the most out of his teams is why he's coaching at Oklahoma today. It's how he parlayed that job. But there's one thing he's never done: won at an elite level consistently. That's where the level starts to go up for Danny and drop for Porter. Doesn't mean that won't be the case on Friday. Easily could be a Oklahoma Sooner win. But since taking over in the Oklahoma, Mosier has yet to reach the NCAA tournament until NCAA tournament second weekend, struggling to gain traction at first in the rugged Big 12 before Oklahoma moved to the brutal SEC. His teams are always tough, always well coached, but at this point, he's still chasing that next level success. Converse that with Danny. We all know his storyline, going for a third straight national title. Hurley is no longer the hungry up-and-comer, although you can never tell it based off of how he reacts and talks on the court. He's one of the best coaches in the game, if not the absolute top of the food chain, in the best coach in the country. I would arguably put him in the top 1 or 2 or 3. I can leave open that discussion for the future. I think this year's coaching job is actually underrated, if we're being honest. Hurley has the better team, the better program, and the better tournament track record. But I don't want to sleep on Porter Mosier. He thrives as the underdog, and that's exactly where they want to be. My throat is barking. I'm going to call it a day. We're going to have more on this story tomorrow and through the week, as UConn doesn't play till Friday. So lucky for me, we have a week full of content to talk through different people. What's the ceiling? Not to look past Oklahoma, to get ready for them versus worry about Florida after that. If you're going to the game in Raleigh, hit me up. I will likely be there. I'm going to say like an hour and a half before tip. I'll probably get there for the Florida Norfolk game first, and stay for those 2 games. So anyway, we'll talk soon. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, stay with this team, guys. This team is not going anywhere. And if it's up to us and if it's up to them, this UConn team could be playing in the Sweet 16. But it's going to need a lot of effort. It's going to need a lot of everybody locking in and being ready for what's next. Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.